Listen carefully. This world will break every mind that is not trained to stand alone. People will drain you. Pain will chase you. The past will try to chain you. But a strategic mind learns the first law of emotional power: detach or be destroyed. Detachment is not coldness. It is control. It is the ability to watch chaos without letting it touch your inner balance. It is the discipline to walk away from noise, weakness, and emotional traps without apologizing. Most people bleed energy because they care too quickly, react too fast, and attach too deeply. You cannot afford that. Not if you want to become someone who never collapses. Not if you want to move like a quiet weapon. You must harden your mind, sharpen your focus, and treat emotions like tools, never like masters. That is how powerful men rise. That is how kings are forged. So as you listen, repeat this truth silently. I own my emotions. They do not own me. Comment it below to burn it into your mind. This is Machiavellian mode. And today, you learn how to detach from people, pain, and the past, and build a mind that never breaks. Number 1. The art of strategic detachment. Detachment begins with a brutal truth. Most people cling to others because they fear standing alone, but every powerful mind is built in solitude. When you detach, you stop giving strangers access to your emotions, you stop letting temporary feelings shape permanent decisions, and you stop allowing the past to define how you move today. You become deliberate, you become precise. You stop chasing validation and start studying behavior like a strategist, not a victim. Detachment is not about isolating yourself. It is about refusing to drown in the emotions of people who don't carry the consequences of your life. It is about learning to watch someone's actions without taking their words personally. It is about realizing that your peace is worth more than connection, and your direction is worth more than comfort. When you detach, you regain command of your thoughts, your choices, and your future. You stop reacting. You start deciding. And when the world sees a person who does not break under pressure, who does not beg for attention, who does not collapse when abandoned, they fear you, they respect you, or they try to imitate you. Comment, I choose control to mark your beginning. Number 2, cutting the strings that control you. Every human being walks around tied to invisible strings. Expectations, memories, grudges, guilt, hopes, disappointments, the opinions of people who don't even live their life. These strings pull your emotions, twist your decisions, and weaken your judgment without you even noticing. Machiavelli understood one thing clearly. The person who controls your emotions controls your actions, and the person who controls your actions controls your life. That is why detachment isn't just a mindset, it's a form of self-defense. When you cut these strings, you stop being a puppet. You stop being predictable. You stop being easy to manipulate. You become someone who sees the world without distortion, someone who responds with logic instead of emotional impulse, someone who moves with intention instead of desperation. Most people are prisoners of their past pain, always reacting from old wounds, always dragging memories into moments where they don't belong. But a strategic mind refuses to let the past dictate the present. You detach by confronting the truth. Not every battle deserves your energy. Not every person deserves your trust, and not every emotion deserves your attention. You detach by refusing to let people live rent-free in your head. You detach by refusing to let anger rush your judgment or attachment blind your perception. True power begins the moment you can look at something that once triggered you and feel nothing but clarity. The moment you can walk away from someone who drains you and feel no guilt. The moment you can stand in silence, unmoved, while others try to provoke a reaction. That is when you become untouchable. That is when you rise above the emotional chaos that destroys ordinary men. If you're ready to level up, comment, "My mind obeys me," and let the transformation continue. Number 3, emotional neutrality, the weapon of the unshakable. Emotional neutrality is the silent weapon that turns ordinary men into strategic giants, because the moment you stop reacting automatically is the moment you start choosing intelligently. Most people carry emotional triggers like open wounds. Any insult, disappointment, delay, or rejection can pull them into chaos within seconds. They explode, they panic, they overthink, they beg, they justify, they crumble. Their emotions move first, and their mind arrives too late. But the man who masters emotional neutrality moves differently. He observes before he reacts. He breathes before he speaks. He thinks before he decides. He is not cold. He is controlled. He is not distant. He is deliberate. Emotional neutrality means you refuse to give anyone the power to dictate the pace of your inner world. It means you stay calm when others lose control, patient when others get irritated, and strategic when others get emotional. And understand this: your calmness will intimidate people who rely on your reactions to validate their importance. When you stop reacting, their influence dies. When you stop explaining yourself, their confidence collapses. When you stop responding to emotional bait, their ability to manipulate you disappears. Emotional neutrality is not weakness. It is the highest form of emotional intelligence. It gives you the power to outthink, outmaneuver, and outlast anyone who tries to trigger you. It gives you clarity in the exact moments when others destroy themselves through impulsive decisions. And the truth is, emotional neutrality is built through discipline. The discipline to let silence answer disrespect. The discipline to let time expose liars. The discipline to let distance reveal true intentions. The discipline to remain still while others desperately try to drag you into their storms. A neutral mind is a dangerous mind because it cannot be provoked into acting against itself. It cannot be rushed. It cannot be guilt-tripped. It cannot be controlled. People will study your face and find nothing. They will test your patience and break before you do. They will try to manipulate you and realize you see straight through them. This is what makes you untouchable. This is what makes you unpredictable. This is what makes you powerful. If you're ready to build this level of inner steel, comment, "Calm is my power," and prepare to step into the next stage. Number 4, detaching from pain. Turning wounds into weapons. Pain becomes a prison only when you treat it as something that happened to you instead of something that happened for you. And the moment you shift that perspective, you break the emotional chains that have held you down for years. Most people carry pain like a badge of identity. They replay old betrayals, old heartbreaks, old humiliations, old losses, letting those memories shape their confidence, their choices, their boundaries, and worst of all, their self-worth. They let the past speak louder than the present. They let wounds dictate who they become. But a Machiavellian mind refuses to live as a victim of yesterday. It studies pain like data, mines it like information, and transforms it into strategic advantage. Detaching from pain does not mean pretending it never happened. It means refusing to let it steer your life. It means understanding that suffering can build strength, but only if you stop feeding it with attention. Pain sharpens you when you stop indulging in emotional storytelling and start extracting lessons instead. Who lied to you? Who underestimated you? Who left you? Who hurt you? Good. File it away as intelligence, not identity. Pain becomes fuel when you stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "How can this make me stronger, colder, smarter, and harder to break?" The world destroys people who take pain personally. It cannot touch those who convert pain into discipline. Detaching from pain means refusing to let heartbreak make you desperate, refusing to let betrayal make you paranoid, refusing to let failure make you timid. It means holding your emotional center steady even when your world shakes. It means remembering that the past is not a prophecy. It is a closed chapter with no authority over your future unless you hand it the pen again. You must realize that every painful memory loses power once you stop revisiting it. Every wound stops bleeding once you stop picking at it. And every betrayal becomes irrelevant once you stop trying to understand it. You detach by saying, "This happened, it shaped me, but it no longer controls me." You detach by refusing to let someone who is gone still influence the way you think, react, trust, or move. You detach by reminding yourself that every scar on your mind is proof that you survived, not proof that you're broken. Pain becomes a weapon when it no longer blinds you but informs you. A man who can look at his past without flinching without bitterness, without emotional collapse, is a man who cannot be manipulated through guilt, fear, or memory. That is the type of man who rises, the type who intimidates, the type who stays unshaken no matter what storms return. If you are ready to turn your wounds into strength, comment, "Pain strengthens me," and move forward with a sharper mind. Number 5, detaching from people, reclaiming the power they took from you. Detaching from people is one of the hardest, coldest, and most liberating disciplines a human mind can ever master, because people are the greatest source of both strength and suffering, clarity and confusion, growth and destruction. Most individuals will never understand this truth. They stay attached to the wrong people for too long, hoping loyalty will change someone who has no intention of becoming better, hoping love will fix someone who has no desire to grow, hoping patience will make someone value what they consistently take for granted. They cling to relationships out of fear, not strategy. They tolerate disrespect out of loneliness, not wisdom. They replay old memories to avoid confronting the truth that some people were meant only to be lessons, not lifelong companions. But a Machiavellian mind is not sentimental. It is surgical. It observes people's behavior, not their excuses. It pays attention to patterns, not promises. It measures what someone brings into your life, not what they say they will bring eventually. Detaching from people does not mean you isolate yourself. It means you refuse to keep giving access to those who have proven they cannot be trusted with your energy, your peace, or your ambition. It means you stop trying to fix people who benefit from staying broken. It means you stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. It means you stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. You detach by realizing that loyalty without boundaries becomes self-destruction. You detach by accepting that someone who drains you emotionally is more dangerous than someone who defeats you physically. You detach by understanding that walking away is not a sign of weakness. It is a declaration of self-respect. The truth is, every person in your life is either an asset or a liability, and when you finally evaluate them through that lens, your emotional clarity skyrockets. Some people push you forward with their support and belief. Others hold you back with their envy and fear. Some expand your mind with ideas, discipline, and challenges. Others shrink your world with drama, gossip, and insecurity. And the cold reality is this: many people do not love you. They love the benefits, comfort, validation, or emotional maintenance you provide. Once those benefits disappear, so do they. That is why detachment is power, because when you no longer fear losing someone, no one can manipulate you with their presence or absence. When you no longer rely on someone emotionally, their behavior cannot control your mood. When you no longer expect anything from people, their disappointments cannot wound you. Detaching from people means you choose your circle intentionally, not desperately. You keep those who align with your growth, not those who demand you stay small. You invest in people who invest in themselves, not those who drain others to avoid facing their own emptiness. You give your loyalty to the rare few who have earned it through consistency, integrity, and action. And for everyone else, you remain respectful but distant, cordial but unavailable, kind but unmovable. A person who knows how to detach is dangerous because they cannot be controlled through abandonment, seduced by flattery, guilt-tripped into compliance, or emotionally blackmailed into staying where they no longer belong. They choose who stays and who leaves, and they do it without trembling. If you are ready to reclaim your emotional power from the hands of others, comment, "I control my connections," and step into the next stage of mastery. Part 6. Detaching from the past. Destroying the stories that keep you weak. Detaching from the past requires a level of inner precision and ruthless honesty that most people avoid for their entire lives. because it forces you to confront the truth that everything you continue to feel, fear, regret, or cling to from yesterday survives only because you keep feeding it with attention, emotion, and mental repetition. The past is not a living force. It is a memory, a psychological echo, a story you keep retelling until it becomes a cage you mistake for identity. Most people stay trapped in this cage because the familiar pain feels safer than the unfamiliar freedom that comes with letting go. They replay old heartbreaks as if suffering will rewrite the ending. They revisit betrayals as if analyzing them endlessly will produce justice. They carry the guilt of mistakes that no longer exist anywhere except in their mind. They cling to broken identities because they have no vision of who they could become without them. But a Machiavellian mind refuses to worship the past. It studies it, extracts lessons from it, and then buries it without ceremony. Detaching from the past begins with acknowledging that the version of you who lived those moments no longer exists. You have new knowledge, new scars, new strength, and new awareness. So why cling to a story written by someone you've already outgrown? The weak mind stays loyal to pain. The strong mind stays loyal to evolution. You must learn to treat the past like data, not destiny. A lesson, not a definition. A reference, not a ruler. The moment you stop giving emotional meaning to old memories is the moment you stop being controlled by them. The truth is this: your past does not hurt you anymore. Your attachment to the story does. Every time you revisit an old wound, you tear it open again. Every time you replay an old failure, you freeze your present potential. Every time you mourn who you used to be, you abandon who you could become. Detaching from the past means seeing it clearly without emotional fog. That relationship didn't break you. You outgrew someone afraid of growth. That betrayal didn't define you. It revealed who never deserved your loyalty. That failure wasn't the end. It was the necessary friction that sharpened you. That version of yourself you regret wasn't a mistake. It was the foundation on which your future strength is built. But here is the cold truth. You cannot step into power while holding hands with your former weakness. You cannot build a new identity while clinging to the corpse of your old one. You cannot walk forward while staring backward. You detach by refusing to let the past sit in the front seat of your life. You detach by refusing to let nostalgia blind you to the reality of who people actually were, not who you wanted them to be. You detach by refusing to let guilt convince you that you owe something to the person you were before you knew better. You detach by refusing to let regret manipulate your self-worth. And above all, you detach by refusing to let yesterday decide the energy you carry into today. Understand this: no memory has power unless you authorize it. No mistake holds weight unless you reinforce it. No past identity survives unless you breathe life into it. When you stop feeding the past with emotion, it dies, and its death becomes your rebirth. Detaching from the past means stripping it of all emotional authority. You can acknowledge what happened without letting it shape your mood, your decisions, or your worldview. You can remember without reliving. You can reflect without drowning. This is the difference between the powerful and the powerless. The powerless use the past as justification for their stagnation. The powerful use it as fuel for their transformation. A man who is no longer controlled by his past becomes dangerous because he becomes unpredictable. He breaks patterns instead of repeating them, creates new standards instead of staying loyal to old wounds, and chooses who he becomes instead of defaulting to who he once was. That is why detaching from the past is the ultimate psychological evolution. You stop living as the product of what happened to you and start living as the architect of what happens next. And make no mistake, this detachment requires willpower. You will be tempted to revisit old hurts when your mind seeks familiarity. You will be tempted to compare your present to a romanticized version of your past. You will be tempted to slip back into old habits that once felt comfortable. But comfort is the bait that keeps people chained to the lives they should have left years ago. When you detach from the past, you stop mourning chapters that were never meant to follow you into your future. You stop apologizing for outgrowing environments that stopped nourishing you. you stop feeling guilty. For becoming someone your old circle can no longer understand, the past becomes a closed book, not a recurring nightmare. The man who detaches from his past becomes unbreakable because nothing behind him holds the ability to drag him backward. He becomes unstoppable because his identity evolves faster than his memories can limit him. And he becomes unshakable because he finally realizes that the only thing that ever had the power to imprison him was the story he kept telling himself. If you are ready to destroy the last chains, whisper internally and then comment publicly, "The past has no power over me." Number 7. Building the unbreakable mind. The rise of the man who feels but obeys only his will. An unbreakable mind is not a mind without emotion. It is a mind where emotion exists but never commands, where feeling occurs but never overrules reason, where fear whispers but never wins, where doubt appears but never dictates direction, and where the past, people, and pain may knock on the door but are never allowed inside. Most people crumble not because life is too hard, but because their mind is too easily invaded. By memories they should have buried, by opinions that should have been ignored, by fears that should have been challenged, and by attachments they should have severed long ago. They operate like open cities with no walls, no gates, no guards. Any thought, any person, any insult, any insecurity can walk right in and take control. But an unbreakable mind is a fortress, a structure built intentionally, reinforced daily, guarded ruthlessly, and that fortress begins with self-command. The first pillar of the unbreakable mind is discipline, because discipline trains you to do what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel. Discipline teaches you to act when others hesitate, to continue when others quit, to focus when others get distracted, and to rise when others collapse. When your actions stop obeying your emotions and start obeying your principles, your mind becomes untouchable. The second pillar is clarity, the ability to see reality without distortion, sentimental fog, or emotional bias. Clarity allows you to detect manipulation instantly, recognize threats early, identify weakness within yourself before it becomes a weapon in someone else's hands, and make decisions based on truth instead of desire. Clarity makes you immune to flattery, indifferent to insults, and resistant to emotional chaos. The third pillar is detachment, because without detachment, discipline becomes fragile and clarity becomes corrupted. Detachment frees you from the invisible chains that pull the average person in every direction. Approval, validation, nostalgia, loneliness, guilt, desire. Detachment says, "I will feel this, but I will not follow it." It says, "I acknowledge this pain, but I will not bow to it." It says, "I remember what happened, but I do not live there anymore." The fourth pillar of the unbreakable mind is adaptability, the ability to shift when life shifts, to evolve when circumstances evolve, to change approach when the strategy demands it, and to remove yourself from situations where your strengths are being wasted or your value is being drained. Adaptability is the weapon of those who survive storms, and the advantage of those who outplay their enemies without ever meeting them head-on. The fifth pillar is emotional minimalism, the skill of caring selectively, investing intentionally, and reacting sparingly. The unbreakable mind does not waste energy on arguments that lead nowhere, people who refuse to grow, opportunities built on uncertainty, or situations driven by ego. It cares only where care produces results. It invests only where investment multiplies. It reacts only when reaction shifts outcomes. The sixth pillar is silence, strategic silence, not passive silence. The unbreakable mind does not broadcast its plans, reveal its emotions, explain its boundaries, or justify its decisions. Silence protects your intentions, confuses your enemies, and strengthens your presence. It keeps others guessing while you stay focused. The seventh pillar is mental independence, the ability to think for yourself, decide for yourself, validate yourself, and stand alone without trembling. Most people fear standing alone because they lack self-belief. But an unbreakable mind knows solitude is not emptiness. It is power. It is in solitude where vision becomes clear, where identity becomes defined, and where strength becomes undeniable. The eighth pillar is emotional sovereignty, the complete ownership of your inner world. It means no one is allowed to control your mood, dictate your value, or pull you into their emotional storms. It means you refuse to be emotionally available to chaos, negativity, or manipulation. It means you live by a simple law. My emotions belong to me. No one else holds the remote. The ninth pillar is a ruthless relationship standard. The unbreakable mind does not bond with people who drain, distract, or derail it. It does not chase people who leave, nor cling to people who stay without contributing. It does not allow energy vampires, emotional parasites, or insecure manipulators to camp inside its peace. It surrounds itself only with those who sharpen, support, or strengthen. And the 10th pillar, the final and most essential, is identity mastery, the ability to consciously choose who you become next instead of remaining who you were by default. The unbreakable mind reinvents itself, continuously shedding outdated beliefs, eliminating useless habits, replacing destructive patterns, and upgrading standards without apology. It holds itself to a level others cannot understand and refuses to fall back into the version it outgrew. An unbreakable mind is not something you inherit. It is something you construct, brick by brick, decision by decision, discipline by discipline, boundary by boundary. It is the product of silence, suffering, solitude, strategy, and self-respect. And once you build it, no betrayal can shatter it, no loss can collapse it, no insult can penetrate it, and no storm can move it. If you are ready to begin forging this inner fortress, comment, "My mind is mine," and prepare for the next step in your rise. Number 8. The power of controlled emotion. Commanding your inner world like a strategist, not a slave. Controlled emotion is not the absence of feeling, it is the mastery of feeling, the art of directing emotion instead of being directed by it, the rare ability to harness internal forces with the same precision a general uses to command an army. Most people misunderstand emotional control. They think it means becoming numb, empty, or indifferent, but that is weakness disguised as toughness. True control means you feel everything, yet nothing holds power over your behavior. You experience emotion fully, but you obey it only when it aligns with your strategy. You do not suppress emotion, you subordinate it. You do not run from feeling, you rule over feeling. And this is why controlled emotion becomes one of the greatest weapons of a powerful mind, because every downfall in the human world, betrayal, failure, humiliation, impulsive decisions, broken relationships, lost opportunities can be traced back to an uncontrolled emotion that burst through the gates and seized the throne for even a moment. Anger that wasn't restrained, fear that wasn't confronted, love that wasn't questioned, sadness that wasn't understood, ego that wasn't humbled, desire that wasn't examined. Every emotional collapse comes from surrendering the crown to a moment that never deserved it. But the man who learns to command his emotions becomes untouchable because he becomes unpredictable. He does not react in ways his enemies expect. He does not break in ways his past once dictated. He does not collapse under pressure the way the average mind does. To control emotion is to control behavior, and to control behavior is to control destiny. The first step to emotional control is awareness, noticing the feeling the moment it rises, catching it before it hijacks your mind, recognizing its intention, its origin, its trigger. Awareness gives you distance, and distance gives you leverage. Without awareness, emotion rides you. With awareness, you ride emotion. The second step is interpretation, understanding that emotion is not always truth. Emotion is a message, not a command. Fear alerts you, but does not define reality. Anger signals a boundary, but does not decide the response. Sadness tells you something mattered, but does not determine your identity. Desire shows you what you want, but not whether it is wise. Emotion speaks, but you choose whether to listen or disregard. The third step is containment, holding emotion inside you without letting it spill recklessly onto others or sabotage your decisions. Containment teaches you the difference between internal experience and external expression. You can feel anger without speaking it. You can feel fear without acting on it. You can feel love without losing judgment. You can feel pain without collapsing. Containment creates the psychological distance that weak minds lack. The fourth step is direction, taking that emotion and using it as fuel instead of letting it burn you. Anger becomes discipline, fear becomes preparation, pain becomes strength, loss becomes clarity, desire becomes ambition, emotion becomes raw energy that you channel, not a wildfire that consumes you. This is why controlled emotion produces greatness. It multiplies your internal power instead of scattering it. The fifth step is detachment, the ability to hold emotion without becoming emotion. The ability to observe your own internal storm while standing in the calm center of your mind. Detachment gives you the ability to feel deeply yet act rationally, to experience intensity without losing composure, to walk through fire without letting the flames guide your steps. Most people destroy themselves because they treat emotion as identity. They say, "I am angry," instead of, "I feel anger." They say, "I am afraid," instead of, "I feel fear." They say, "I am broken," instead of, "I feel pain." They attach themselves to the emotion so tightly that they become extensions of it. And once emotion becomes identity, control becomes impossible. But the man who can separate self from feeling becomes sovereign. He is no longer defined by his internal weather. He becomes the observer, the commander, the architect of his inner world. The sixth step is expression with intention, the conscious, calculated release of emotion where it serves a purpose, not where it seeks relief. You express emotion when it advances your goals, strengthens your bonds, protects your boundaries, or clarifies your truth, not when it temporarily soothes the inner child. Weak minds express emotion impulsively. Strong minds express emotion strategically. The seventh step is self-respect, because emotional control is impossible for someone who allows themselves to behave in ways that violate their own standards. Self-respect sets boundaries with yourself. I do not beg. I do not panic. I do not chase. I do not collapse. I do not react blindly. I do not embarrass myself for temporary emotion. When you respect yourself, you refuse to act in ways that weaken you, even when emotion tempts you. The eighth and final step is integration, the moment emotional control becomes a part of who you are, not something you attempt. It becomes instinct. You stay calm automatically. You think before reacting without effort. You remain composed even when blindsided. You move with the quiet, dangerous confidence of someone who cannot be shaken from within. People will start saying you are cold, emotionless, detached, but in reality, you are simply not controlled by forces that control them. You feel everything. They just don't see it. You think deeply. They just don't hear it. You choose your responses. They just can't predict them. Controlled emotion is the crown of the unbreakable mind. It is the skill that separates the leaders from the followers, the respected from the exploited, the dominant from the manipulated. It is the art that Machiavelli understood. Power is held by those who command themselves when others lose themselves. If you are ready to ascend into this level of self-mastery, comment, "I command my emotions," and prepare to continue your evolution. Number 9. Becoming untroublable, the state where nothing and no one can move your center. To become untroublable is to reach a level of inner dominance where life no longer shakes you, people no longer confuse you, emotions no longer drown you, and circumstances no longer dictate the quality of your mind. It is the point where your internal stability becomes so solid, so centered, and so deliberately constructed that outside forces lose their ability to penetrate your psychological walls. Most people live in a constant state of emotional turbulence because their minds are reactive rather than intentional. They respond instantly to stress, panic in uncertainty, break under pressure, and allow the smallest inconvenience or insult to throw them off balance. Their emotional center is weak, fragile, and easily influenced. But the man who becomes untroublable moves differently. He is anchored, steady, deliberate, and unshaken, not because life is easy, but because he has built an internal system that cannot be destabilized. Becoming untroublable begins with understanding one truth: control is internal, not external. You cannot control what others do, what they say, how they behave, how they misjudge you, or how life unfolds. But you can control how you interpret, respond, and adapt. You can control your thoughts, your reactions, your habits, your attitude, your boundaries, your strategy, and your emotional allocation. You detach from the illusion of external control and redirect all your energy toward inner command. The untroublable man does not need circumstances to be perfect. He needs his mind to be disciplined. He does not need people to treat him right. He needs his boundaries to be clear. He does not need life to be predictable. He needs his focus to be unwavering. And this is where most people fail. They spend their lives trying to fix the world around them instead of fortifying the world within them. They try to change people instead of changing their responses. They try to avoid discomfort instead of training their mind to withstand it. They try to escape uncertainty instead of strengthening their tolerance for it. To become untroublable, you must develop emotional endurance, the ability to remain calm in storms that terrify others, the ability to think clearly under pressure, the ability to remain composed when insulted, the ability to keep moving when your emotions scream at you to freeze. You must cultivate internal stillness, a quiet space inside your mind that nothing external can reach. Stillness does not mean passivity, it means control in chaos. It means you do not let people drag you into unnecessary noise. It means you do not let their insecurities trigger your insecurities. It means you do not let their drama infect your peace. It means you let the world burn around you without letting the fire spread inside you. And the truth is, people will test you more when you develop this level of control, because your calmness threatens their instability, your silence threatens their insecurity, your discipline threatens their laziness, your detachment threatens their emotional manipulation. But you remain unbothered because you understand that someone else's internal chaos is not your responsibility and will never be your problem. Becoming untroublable also means having unshakable self-trust, a confidence built not on ego, but on evidence, on discipline, on experience, on surviving what once broke you, on mastering what once controlled you. You trust your judgment, you trust your intuition, you trust your resilience, you trust your ability to handle whatever comes. An untroublable man does not fear the unknown because he trusts himself in the unknown. He does not fear loss because he trusts his ability to rebuild. He does not fear rejection because he trusts his own value. And finally, becoming untroublable means mastering detachment from outcomes. You do the work, execute the plan, give your best, and detach from the result. You do not obsess, overthink, replay, or panic. You let life unfold without letting it control your state of mind. This is the highest form of emotional freedom, when nothing external has the power to disturb your inner equilibrium. If you're ready to reach this state, comment "Nothing can shake me" and prepare for the final ascent. Number 10. The final ascent. Living as the one who cannot be broken. Living as someone who cannot be broken means you no longer participate in the emotional games that ordinary people play, nor do you allow yourself to be pulled into the confusion, noise, or instability that dominates their inner world. It means you have risen above reactivity, above ego battles, above impulsive emotion, above the need for validation, above the influence of the past, and above the unpredictable behavior of others. To live unbroken is to live with a mind that has matured beyond chaos, one that has been tested, sharpened, refined, and rebuilt until it stands like a steel tower in a world full of shaking foundations. You become someone who does not collapse when life hits hardest, someone who does not cling when people leave, someone who does not fold when emotions swell, someone who does not lose himself when uncertainty arrives. Instead, you stand calm, centered, and immovable because you have built yourself from the inside out. Living unbroken requires daily vigilance. You protect your peace with boundaries that do not bend. You guide your actions with logic instead of impulse. You maintain perspective even when your emotions try to distort reality. You choose silence where others choose chaos. You choose distance where others choose drama. You choose self-control where others choose self-destruction. And this daily discipline becomes your armor. But make no mistake, living unbroken does not mean you never feel pain. It means pain does not own you. It does not define you. It does not decide your story. Living unbroken does not mean you never face loss. It means loss does not turn you into someone you are not. Living unbroken does not mean you never feel fear. It means fear does not control your direction. The unbreakable mind still feels, but it feels with mastery. It still cares, but it cares selectively. It still trusts, but it trusts wisely. It still loves, but it loves without losing itself. And above all, it still moves forward, always forward, regardless of who stays, who leaves, who doubts, or who betrays. The man who lives unbroken becomes a force, silent, steady, self-directed, and impossible to manipulate. He becomes someone others study but cannot understand, because they see his composure, but not the battles he fought to earn it. They see his detachment, but not the pain he overcame to learn it. They see his confidence, but not the scars that strengthened it. And this is your final transformation. You have detached from people, pain, and the past. You have built neutrality, control, self-command, and unshakable discipline. You have stepped into a state where your inner world belongs only to you. If you are ready to live as the one who cannot be broken, comment, "I rise above all." And remember, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to continue your evolution inside Machiavellian mode.